Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if this policy went to the LAEA for review.
Dr. Jones.
Yes, the school board committee that it went to for review and feedback was the equity committee. I had the opportunity to present it and take questions and feedback, and the equity committee was afforded an opportunity as well to provide information through the online format.
I believe Corbo's question was LEA, not equity.
Not specifically to LEA.
But if Ms. Corbo, if I could just clarify that the ability to comment is open to everyone on our website. Is that correct? Dr. Smith is shaking his head.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct. And there are times when policies are up for review that we'll have additional committees or community groups contact us specifically with feedback, and we most certainly take that feedback and provide it to the board committees.
So I just wanted clarification with when we talk about the new policy review process. My understanding was that we include LEA, the Equity Committee, and others. Do we just pick and choose, or do all policies go through those groups?
Dr. Smith, did you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of times the committee themselves, the board committee, will determine specifically which committees they'll respect feedback from or will ask for feedback from. Oftentimes it'll be specific to the actual policy. So in this case with the student policy, we make sure we look at the equity committee. They are a broad committee to provide feedback. We make sure that we get community feedback in general. And so in this case, that was the primary committee to give feedback. And as we indicated, the community had extensive opportunities to provide feedback via the website.
And thank you. And part of my question is just to clarify that if we're talking about this new policy review process, to make sure that all groups are included, but you said that the committee, that it's decided which groups these policies will go through. So if, for example, if I was interested in a committee, during a committee policy review, would it be up to the board members to request these different groups for that process, for the policy to go through during the process? Is that where that would take place? Because if LEA, for example, LEA is not included or was not included in this process, how would a board member get an organization included?
Madam Chair, if I could respond to that.
Thank you, Dr. Ziegler.
So it's important to keep in mind that the Equity Committee, MSAC, and SEAC are advisory committees to the school board. And so they are sometimes given preferential treatment in their role as advisory committee to the school board. The LEA, while an important organization and certainly their opinion is valued and valuable to LCPS, is an outside organization that is not given preferential treatment. So for the normal feedback, just like in your board packets tonight, there's some, I'm guessing 50 pages or so of feedback provided through that public input process, and there are multiple groups that are represented throughout that feedback. And so for us as administration to try to find every group that may have an interest in a policy would not be expedient and would not lend itself to a process, because we would ultimately leave somebody out. So for outside organizations, that public comment process is open, and as Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones have already pointed out, the process for this particular policy was open longer than any of the other feedback policies for proposed policies that are under consideration by the board.
Thank you, Dr. Ziegler. Ms. Reeser. Oh, sorry, Ms. Corbo.
I didn't get my question answered.
Go ahead, Ms. Corbo. I didn't realize you weren't finished.
Thank you. Now, I just wanted to know, with HRTD policies, we do include the LEA. With this one, they weren't included. And if a board member wanted to specifically ask a group to be included and to get feedback, would that be done in committee, and would that be requested by a school board member?
Madam Chair. Mrs. Corbo, school board members are permitted and welcome to solicit feedback from any group that they want, and that could be as an individual school board member or as a committee. So if a board committee wanted to solicit feedback from a particular group, they're certainly within their realm of power to do that. It is also certainly within the purview of an individual school board member to seek feedback from different groups.
Thank you.
Ms. Reeser?
Well, first, I just wanted to thank you again, Dr. Smith, and the rest of cabinet and staff for employing the new comment policy that we've had online for some months now. And I'm grateful to my colleague for asking the question about how that information is used. And I'm happy to hear that we use it both in the development of policy and regulations, and also that we'll be able to use this information in training, so the public has unparalleled and unprecedented access to influence what we're doing. And I know that was important to many of us sitting up here on the dais, and to many of you. And I just wanted to remind everyone that I believe we heard from the president of the LEA during public comment on this policy last night. Thank you.
Mr. Morse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I recall, when I listened back to the committee meeting from several months ago when this was forwarded to the full board, I recall one of the committee members asking for the LEA position. So we had actually reached out to LEA to get an official position. So it bothers me somewhat that one of the largest stakeholder groups that represents all of our employees was asked to provide that information, and that for whatever reason, either staff or the board did not reach out to the stakeholder group to get their official position. So I'm a little distraught about that. I would also point out that the governor signed this in March of 2020, and he told the state BDOE that they needed to provide a product. And they provided that product 4 months late. So you're looking at the time frame when we were told to have our policy in place, yet we received the official BDOE model 4 months late. And I don't recall that there was any repercussions to the state BDOE for not delivering that model on time. What that did was that shortened our timeline by 4 months. Now, obviously, we were just saying how thorough we went through this, but we didn't ask the LEA, and we didn't get their inputs. But for some reason, the model contract rolls out 4 months late, and something else is going. Oh yeah, COVID's going on, and so our families are engaged in other places, perhaps, and not aware of exactly what was going on. Because I'll be quite honest, I didn't know that this law passed in March of 2020. I was unaware of that because we were a little busy at that time. And I'm willing to bet most of our constituents had no clue that this was being passed at the state level. So as we look to provide our local inputs on this policy, our attorney points out that we're required to adopt the policies. We are not required to adopt this policy. We have in place policy 1040, policy 8210, 7560, 8250, 8610, and 8640, which cover the content of the requirement that's being levied upon us within this new policy. What we're doing is we're singling out a single group of our constituency, and we're creating a whole new policy for one segment. And what we're setting up now is the expectation for every other group in Loudoun to get their own policy, instead of doing the smart thing and consolidating them and addressing them in a single training policy, and in a single anti-harassment, anti-bully, equity policy. That's the way we should be handling it. So we are not required to adopt this policy. Many people across the state have already rejected this. And I'm not saying reject it out of hand. I'm saying that we could take it back to committee. But I won't support the way it's written today. Thank you.